I found out my fiancée had another husband. A debt collector called me. He asked why I stopped paying for a car I had never seen in my life. At first, I honestly thought it was a scam. One of those calls where they scare you into giving information. But then the man on the phone calmly listed my full legal name, my address, my date of birth, and the last 4 digits of my social security number. Then he said the sentence that made my stomach drop so hard I had to sit down. "Sir, you co-signed this auto loan in person 3 months ago." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the only person on this planet who had access to my documents was the woman upstairs planning our wedding. I'll call her Maya. I'm 31. She's 29. We've been together just under 3 years and engaged for 6 months. Wedding date booked. Venue reserved. Deposits paid. Invitations sent out. My mom already bought her dress. My friends joked that I'd finally won at life. And I believed it. Maya was the organized one. She loved structure. Loved lists, folders, color-coded notes. She handled anything official. Bills, paperwork, emails, phone calls. She even had a thick binder on the shelf labeled Life Admin, which I used to tease her about. I trusted her completely. Looking back now, that trust wasn't loyalty. It was negligence. Maya moved in with me a year ago. I work in IT, steady job, decent salary, excellent credit. Maya said she did freelance marketing. That was always her title. Freelance marketing. It sounded vague, but impressive enough that I never questioned it. She always had clients. Always had projects. Always had invoices that were processing. Money was never an emergency, but it was always just slightly off. Sometimes I covered rent. Sometimes groceries. Sometimes utilities. She'd say things like, "Cash flow is weird this month," or "I'll make it up to you next month." I didn't mind. Relationships aren't always perfectly balanced. I thought we were building something together. 2 weeks before everything blew up, Maya told me she was flying to Arizona for a freelance branding retreat. She showed me a screenshot of an itinerary. Complained about the early flight. Rolled her eyes about networking mixers. It all sounded normal. I drove her to the airport myself. Parked. Walked her to security. Kissed her goodbye. Told her to text me when she landed. She texted me when she landed. The debt collector call came on day 2 of her trip. I told the man he had the wrong person. He insisted he didn't. He read out the dealership name, the purchase date, the vehicle model, the loan amount. Then he read the co-signer name. My name. I told him I had never signed anything. He paused, then said calmly, "Then this would be considered fraud, sir. I recommend filing a police report." After hanging up, my hands were shaking. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Identity theft. Data breach. Mistake. Anything. I pulled my credit report. There it was. A brand new auto loan opened 3 months earlier. 3 months earlier, Maya had asked me for a photo of my driver's license. She said the wedding venue needed it for insurance paperwork. Then she asked for my social security card because some vendors require verification. I remember feeling annoyed but not suspicious. We were planning a wedding. Paperwork was everywhere. I went to my lockbox, took out my documents, and handed them to her. I handed my fiancée everything she needed to destroy my financial life. I called her immediately. Straight to voicemail. I texted her, "Call me ASAP. This is serious." She replied a few minutes later, "In workshop. Can't talk. What's up?" I wrote back, "A debt collector just called me about a car loan in my name." No response. I called again. Voicemail. That's when the pit in my stomach turned into full-blown panic. I called her friend Kayla, who was supposedly on the Arizona trip with her. Kayla answered and said she was at work. When I asked if Maya was with her, there was a long pause. Then Kayla said, she told me she was visiting her aunt. That was the moment I knew nothing was normal anymore. I went to our shared iPad. Her messages were synced. There was a conversation saved under the name J. No last name. No emoji. Just J. The most recent message Maya sent said, "Landing now." See you soon. Miss you. Jay replied, door code still the same. Door code. Not a hotel. Not a venue. A home. Then Maya sent him a photo of a keyring. On it was a car key fob I had never seen before. I scrolled up. There were photos of documents. My documents. My driver's license. My social security card. And one message from Jay that made my chest tighten so hard I had to sit down on the floor. Thanks again for co-signing. Couldn't have done this without you. That's when the truth finally landed. This wasn't just cheating. This was a second life. And somehow, without knowing it, I was paying for it. I didn't confront her right away. Not because I was calm, but because I knew if I did it too early, she'd lie, cry, twist the story, and delete whatever evidence I hadn't seen yet. I needed to understand what I was dealing with before she realized I knew. So I started digging. First, I called the dealership listed on the loan. I gave them my name and said there had to be a mistake. The woman on the phone was polite until she pulled up the file. Then she said, "Sir, you were physically present when the paperwork was signed." I asked for the date and time. It was a Tuesday morning. 3 months ago. A Tuesday when I was supposedly at work. I checked my calendar. That day, I had taken a half-day off. Maya had asked me to stay home because she was overwhelmed with wedding stuff and wanted company while she ran errands. I remembered that day clearly now. We had breakfast together. She kissed me goodbye and said she was going to meet a client. I stayed home, played video games, and thought I was being a supportive fiancé. She came home that evening unusually happy. I remember that too. She brought takeout. She laughed more than usual. She said, "Today went really well." I thought she meant work. I asked the dealership if they had security footage. They said they did, but it would require a police report to release it. So I filed one. Sitting in that police station, explaining to a stranger that my fiancé might have forged my signature to buy a car for someone else, was one of the most humiliating moments of my life. The officer was professional, but I could see the disbelief behind his eyes. Like he'd heard this story before and it never ended well. After that, I checked everything. Bank statements. Credit cards. Old emails. Any account Maya had ever touched. That's when I noticed patterns I'd ignored before. Small cash withdrawals. Transfers I didn't recognize. Subscriptions I didn't use. Expenses that didn't line up with anything in my life. I checked her laptop. I know some people will say that was wrong. I don't care. She had folders hidden inside folders. Burner email accounts. Scans of documents that didn't belong to her. Not just mine. There were marriage certificates. Plural. One was dated 5 years ago. Different state. Different last name. Her maiden name, but paired with a man I'd never heard of. Another one was 2 years ago. Same man as Jay. She wasn't just engaged to me. She was married. Still married. I found photos of her in an apartment I didn't recognize. Photos of holidays she claimed she'd spent with friends. Photos of the car tied to the loan. The same car whose payments were now attached to my credit. I found messages between her and Jay talking about keeping stories straight and making sure no one overlaps. One message from her made my stomach turn. As long as he trusts me, we're safe. He never checks. I realized then that I wasn't unlucky. I was chosen. I was the stable one. The credit. The clean background. The reliable fallback plan. I wasn't her partner. I was her resource. 2 days later, she texted me. Flying back tomorrow. Miss you. I replied normally. Told her I missed her too. Asked how the retreat was. She sent photos. Stock photos. I reverse searched them. They came from a random conference website. When she landed, I picked her up from the airport like nothing was wrong. I hugged her. I kissed her. I listened to her tell me about workshops she never attended and people she never met. Every word felt surreal. That night, while she slept next to me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, realizing I didn't actually know the person beside me at all. The next morning, I told her we needed to talk. She smiled and said, "About what?" I told her about the debt collector. Her face didn't change at first. Not shock. Not confusion. Calculation. Then she laughed and said, "Oh my God, that's just a mistake. I was going to tell you." I asked her who Jay was. She froze. I asked her why my social security card was in another man's phone. She started crying. Not real crying. Strategic crying. She said Jay was an ex. She said she only borrowed my info temporarily. She said she meant to fix everything before I noticed. She said she did it for us. When I told her I'd filed a police report, the crying stopped instantly. Her voice went flat. "You did what?" I told her I knew she was married. She didn't deny it. She just said, "It's complicated." That's when I realized this conversation wasn't going to end with truth. It was going to end with damage control. And I was done letting her control anything. Once she realized I wasn't bluffing, everything about her changed. The tears stopped. Her shoulders relaxed. It was like watching someone drop a mask they were tired of holding up. She didn't apologize. She didn't beg. She didn't even look ashamed. She just sighed and said, "Okay. We need to be smart about this." That sentence alone told me everything. She sat down across from me at the kitchen table like we were negotiating a business deal. She told me Jay wasn't really her husband anymore. They were basically separated, just not legally, because paperwork is messy. She said she married him when she was younger and needed stability, and then met me when she wanted something real. I asked her why she used my identity. She said, "Because you were safe." Not because she loved me. Not because she trusted me. Because I was safe. She explained it like it was logical. Jay had bad credit. She didn't want the loan in her name. She planned to refinance it later. She swore she was going to fix everything before the wedding. She said she never thought I'd find out this way. I asked her how many other things were in my name. She hesitated. That hesitation hit harder than any confession. She admitted there were credit cards. Small ones. Nothing crazy. She admitted she'd opened a line of credit once to cover an emergency. She admitted she'd lied about Arizona. She admitted she was staying with Jay. She said it like it was just another bad choice, not a betrayal layered on top of fraud layered on top of a lie. Then she said the sentence I will never forget. "If you just drop the police report, we can move past this." I felt something in me snap. Not anger. Not sadness. Clarity. I told her to leave. She laughed. Actually laughed. She said my name like I was being dramatic. She said, "Where am I supposed to go?" I told her to go to her husband. That's when she got angry. She told me I was overreacting. She told me I was ruining everything. She told me I was selfish for not thinking about how this would affect her future. She said if I loved her, I wouldn't destroy her life over mistake. A mistake. Identity theft. Fraud. A double marriage. Months of lies. A mistake. She packed a bag while telling me I'd regret this. She reminded me about the wedding deposits. The guests. The embarrassment. She said everyone would think I was the bad guy for calling off the wedding. She was right about one thing. People didn't believe me at first. When I told friends the wedding was off, some of them said I was being dramatic. When I told her family, they said I must have misunderstood. Her mother called me crying, saying Maya would never do something like that. Then the police contacted Jay. And everything unraveled. Turns out Jay didn't know about me at first either. He thought Maya was traveling for work. He thought the car was co-signed by a business partner. When the police showed up, he panicked and told them everything. He gave them messages. Photos. Dates. Addresses. He gave them names. Maya tried to contact me non-stop after that. Calls. Texts. Emails. Long messages explaining herself. Short messages threatening me. Messages switching between love and rage within minutes. I blocked her everywhere. I spent weeks dealing with banks, credit bureaus, and lawyers. I froze my credit. I disputed accounts. I handed over evidence. I learned more about fraud law than I ever wanted to know. My house felt empty and unfamiliar. Every room reminded me of someone who never really existed. At night, I replayed conversations in my head. Every time she said she loved me. Every time she reassured me. Every time I ignored a red flag because it was easier to trust than question. I wasn't just grieving the relationship. I was grieving the version of myself who believed it was real. The legal process took months. Some days it felt like my entire life was reduced to paperwork, phone calls, and waiting rooms. I had to prove, over and over again, that I was a victim of fraud and not an idiot who regretted co-signing something. I gave statements. I signed affidavits. I answered the same questions until they stopped sounding real. Eventually, the loan was flagged as fraudulent. The credit cards were closed. The damage to my credit was reversed piece by piece. Not perfectly, but enough that I could breathe again. Maya was charged. Seeing her name on official documents, next to words like forgery and identity theft, didn't feel like victory. It felt surreal. Like reading about a stranger who happened to have my memories. I never went to court to watch her testify. I didn't want to see her explain herself to another room full of people. I'd already heard every version of her truth. The wedding was officially cancelled. Some deposits were non-refundable. I lost money. I lost time. I lost friends who quietly faded away once the drama became inconvenient. But I didn't lose myself. That realization came slowly. At first, I blamed myself. For trusting too easily. For not checking things. For ignoring red flags I didn't want to see. I replayed moments where I could have stopped this earlier. Moments where a single question might have changed everything. Then my therapist said something that stuck. You didn't fail at being careful. She succeeded at being deceptive. That changed how I saw it. I didn't lose because I loved someone. I lost because someone exploited that love. And those are very different things. Months later, I got a message from a mutual acquaintance saying Maya wanted to apologize. That she was working on herself. That she hoped I'd forgive her someday. I didn't respond. Not because I hate her. But because I don't owe her closure. The silence I gave her was the first boundary I ever enforced without guilt. I've rebuilt slowly. New routines. New sense of caution. A new respect for my own instincts. I still believe in love, but I no longer confuse trust with blind faith. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. People who live double lives rely on your silence, your patience, and your hope that things will eventually make sense. They survive because you keep giving them the benefit of the doubt. Stop doing that. If something feels off, it probably is. If the math doesn't add up, it's not because you're bad at math. It's because someone is lying. And if someone ever asks for your documents, your signature, or your identity in the name of love, slow down. Love doesn't need your social security number. I thought I was planning a wedding. Turns out, I was unknowingly funding a stranger's entire life. And walking away from that was the best decision I ever made.